The 1990s were a transformative decade for the automotive industry. Car manufacturers raced to apply new technologies, experiment with bold designs, and chase modern standards. But not every idea was a success. Some vehicles, launched with high hopes, ended up becoming total disasters. From bizarre designs that left people puzzled to faulty engines that shocked owners, the cars on this list left unforgettable scars in automotive history. And ironically, many of them came from world-renowned brands. You'll see names like Cadillac, Ford, GM, Subaru, but in ways those companies probably wish you'd forget. These weren't just bad cars, they were proof of poor decisions, unrealistic ambitions, and at times, corporate arrogance. So, do you remember the most disappointing car of the 90s? Let's dive into 12 four-wheeled disasters from a decade full of surprises. 1997, Cadillac Catera. Cadillac was once a symbol of luxury and power in America. But by the late 1990s, the company decided to refresh its image by launching a compact, more affordable sedan aimed at younger buyers. And thus came one of the most disappointing cars in the brand's history, the Cadillac Catera. Behind the sleek exterior and aristocratic-sounding name, the Catera was actually a rebadged Opel Omega from Europe, a car that never truly embodied the Cadillac spirit. Its 183 cubic inch V6 engine looked promising, but lacked durability. The automatic transmission frequently malfunctioned, the electrical system was a mess, and the plastic interior parts quickly deteriorated. The marketing campaign, The Caddy That Zigs, was criticized for being confusing and completely off-tone with Cadillac's traditional luxury image. American consumers, used to Cadillacs like the DeVille or Seville, felt deceived. As a result, sales were sluggish, and by 2001, Cadillac quietly discontinued the Catera as if it had never existed. 1991, Yugo Cabrio. If there's ever been a symbol of cheap cars with high risk, the name Yugo would top the list. In 1991, the Yugoslavian automaker decided to launch a convertible version of its bargain basement Yugo GV, called the Yugo Cabrio, hoping to spark fresh interest in the US market. Instead, it only made things worse. Built on the already fragile platform of the GV hatchback, the Cabrio removed the solid roof and replaced it with a soft top, without reinforcing the car's structure. As a result, the body became dangerously unstable at higher speeds, prone to flexing and highly unsafe in the event of an accident. The build quality was atrocious. Misaligned doors, leaky rubber seals, and poor weatherproofing let rain soak into the interior. The underpowered engine, fragile gearbox, and temperamental electrical system earned it a reputation as the convertible for thrill-seekers who don't value reliability. To make matters worse, the Cabrio debuted just as the Yugoslav wars broke out, disrupting the supply chain entirely. Finding replacement parts became a nightmare. Only a very small number of Cabrio units were ever sold in the US before the model vanished into obscurity. 1998, Fiat Multipler. Imagine walking into an auto show and seeing a car that looks like a dolphin in the front with a stubby body and windows that resemble a game of Tetris. That was the pre-production version of the 1998 Fiat Multipler, one of the most controversial car designs of the 1990s. Fiat's concept wasn't bad. Create a compact MPV with 6 seats, a spacious interior, good fuel economy, and urban-friendly flexibility. But the first prototype, unveiled at auto shows in 1997, left audiences stunned. The 2-tier front end, with protruding headlights and a tall windshield led many to compare the Multipler to an alien creature. European media called it a visual accident, while American viewers described it as a bizarre box on wheels. The backlash was so strong that Fiat was forced to tweak the design before its official release in 1999. Still, even the production version remained widely mocked as ugly in a unique way. Despite its excellent functionality, praised by Top Gear for practicality and innovation, the Multipler couldn't shake off its reputation as an aesthetic disaster. 1995, Chevrolet Lumina APV. Debuting in 1990, the 1995 version still retained its space shuttle look, with a sharp nose, steeply sloped windshield, and smooth, featureless body. GM hoped this would be a tech-forward hit, but American customers found it strange and off-putting. Many compared the Lumina APV to a giant vacuum cleaner on wheels. The biggest flaw wasn't just the looks, but the material quality. The body panels were made from composite plastic, lightweight but prone to cracking on impact. The interior was plain, the seats were hard, and noise insulation was poor. Its 231 cubic inch V6 engine was powerful, but couldn't save the car from feeling flimsy on the road. Worse yet, the Lumina APV earned a reputation for being hard to repair thanks to its unconventional body construction. Mechanics and owners often complained that even changing the headlight feels like a nightmare. Though it looked like a vehicle from the future, the Lumina APV became a lesson for GM. Different doesn't always mean desirable. By 1996, Chevrolet quietly ended the APV line and returned to safer, more traditional territory with the Chevy Venture. 1990, Pontiac Sunbird Convertible. In the 1990s, everyone wanted an affordable convertible, and Pontiac thought they had the perfect answer, the Sunbird Convertible. But instead of being a summer dream, it turned into a technical nightmare. Based on the low-cost J-body platform, the Sunbird Convertible was a chopped-roof version of the standard Sunbird coupe. However, the chassis wasn't properly reinforced after losing its fixed roof, leading to severe structural weakness. The body flexed easily, doors became misaligned, and the handling felt extremely loose. To make matters worse, the 122 cubic inch turbocharged four-cylinder engine, while sounding exciting, was prone to overheating, oil leaks, and lacked reliability. The electrical system was temperamental, the manual folding top was fragile, and cabin insulation was virtually non-existent. The interior design felt cheap, with hard plastics and poor build quality. The weak AC system and vibrating windshield at high speeds made driving the Sunbird Convertible an unpleasant experience. Pontiac aimed to deliver a fun, budget-friendly drop-top for young drivers, but ended up with a convertible that almost no one wanted to drive. By the mid-1990s, the model was quietly discontinued, without much regret from the public. 1991, Subaru SVX. When Subaru launched the SVX in 1991, they hoped it would be a breakthrough, a luxury grand tourer that would move the brand beyond its cheap off-road car image. And at first glance, the SVX looked stunning, with a futuristic two-piece window design by legendary designer Giorgetto Giugiaro. But beneath that sci-fi styling was a long list of problems. First, the weight. The SVX came in at nearly 3,600 pounds, far too heavy for a proper sports coupe. Subaru only offered a 4-speed automatic transmission, no manual option, which stripped the car of the sporty character it aimed to deliver. Worse yet, the automatic gearbox was notoriously unreliable, often failing before 60,000 miles, haunting owners with costly repairs. The 201 cubic inch H6 engine made 230 horsepower, but due to the car's weight and weak transmission, overall performance was underwhelming. Its price was also quite high for a Subaru at the time, pushing away many potential buyers. The SVX was a bold move by Subaru, and conceptually, it deserved praise. But in practical terms, it became a financial and mechanical burden for both owners and the brand. By 1997, the SVX was quietly discontinued after poor sales and a mountain of durability complaints. 1995 Ford Aspire. The name Aspire suggests ambition and upward movement, but in reality, the Ford Aspire turned out to be one of the dullest, weakest, and most forgettable cars of the 1990s. A product of collaboration between Ford and Kia, the Aspire was essentially a rebadged Kia Avella for the North American market. Its boxy design, tiny wheels, and basic headlights made it look more like an oversized toy than a real vehicle. While marketed as economical and accessible, the Aspire was shockingly slow, taking over 16 seconds to go from 0 to 60 miles per hour. Its 79 cubic inch engine produced just 63 horsepower, and even the optional 91 cubic inch engine didn't make much difference. Cabin insulation was almost non-existent. The interior was bare bones, and the driving feel was so flimsy that many drivers felt unsafe behind the wheel. To make matters worse, the Aspire scored very poorly in crash safety tests, especially in side impacts. Despite being cheap and fuel efficient, the car never earned consumer trust and was quickly replaced by more practical models like the Ford Focus. 1998 Oldsmobile Intrigue. In the late 1990s, Oldsmobile, General Motors' venerable mark, was scrambling to regain lost glory. The company pinned its hopes on the Oldsmobile Intrigue, marketed as a fresh breeze in the crowded mid-size sedan segment. Yet instead of making waves, the Intrigue became a textbook case of half-hearted innovation. Visually, the car wore smooth, rounded lines that were modern for the era, but it was too anonymous to carve out an identity next to rivals like the Honda Accord or Toyota Camry. Step inside and you found cost-cut plastics, a featureless dash, and build quality that fell short of its sticker price. Under the hood sat GM's 213 cubic inch Shortstar V6, strong on paper, and the chassis offered competent handling. Unfortunately, the Intrigue was plagued by electronic gremlins, malfunctioning instrument clusters, finicky emission sensors, and a parade of check engine lights that sent owners back to the dealer with fat repair bills. Worst of all, Oldsmobile never nailed down what the Intrigue was supposed to be. It lacked the refinement to lure luxury buyers, yet offered too little practicality to sway mainstream shoppers. The result was a sedan, with no clear audience and no compelling hook. Launched amid fanfare as the savior of the brand, the Intrigue merely prolonged Oldsmobile's decline, limping along for a few short years before the badge itself was retired in 2004. 1993 Isuzu Vicross. First unveiled as a concept in 1993, this SUV shocked audiences with its bulging body panels, oversized fender flares, slanted cat-eye headlights, and a strangely rounded rear hatch. The public reaction? Mostly a mix of surprise and confusion. Many thought the Vicross looked more like an anime sketch than a real production vehicle. Still, Isuzu pushed forward and brought it to market with very few design changes, and that's when the problems started. Designed more for display than for practicality, the Vicross posed several real-world headaches. The plastic fenders cracked easily, the rear hatch limited cargo access, and rearward visibility was terrible. Inside, the cabin was sporty but cramped. Rear seats were practically useless for adults. The stiff suspension made city driving a tiring experience. Despite having a strong V6 engine and advanced AWD system, the Vicross never found mainstream success. Its polarizing looks and impractical features alienated average buyers. By 2001, the Vicross was discontinued after poor sales. 1991, Chrysler TC by Maserati. A car that combines Chrysler and Maserati sounds like a dream come true, a fusion of American power and Italian flair. But in reality, the Chrysler TC by Maserati became one of the most awkward failures of the 1990s. Launched in the late 1980s and sold through 1991, the TC was intended as a luxury convertible to rival the Mercedes SL and Cadillac Alante. But the moment it hit the streets, it disappointed. It looked almost identical to the much cheaper Chrysler LeBaron, hardly the exotic Maserati image buyers expected. Although assembled in Italy, the build quality was not significantly better than its American counterpart. The interior featured real leather and wood trim, but the design was dated and lacked modern amenities. Most models used a Chrysler 135 cubic inch four-cylinder engine, underpowered and not worthy of a $30,000 price tag. The rare Maserati-built DOHC engine option was expensive, difficult to service, and poorly distributed. The removable hardtop and electrical systems were also prone to failure. The Chrysler TC was a failure on all fronts: overpriced, underwhelming, and offering no truly special driving experience. After just over 7,000 units sold, the project was quietly shut down. 1995, Suzuki X90. When Suzuki launched the X90 in 1995, the world tilted its head and asked, "What is this thing? Was it an SUV, a coupe, a toy?" The truth is, it was hard to define, and that made the X90 one of the strangest cars of the 1990s. Suzuki hoped the X90 would appeal to young buyers with its quirky design: 2 doors, 2 seats, a removable T-top roof, and SUV-like ground clearance. But in reality, it delivered the worst of both worlds. It wasn't sporty enough to be a coupe, nor practical enough to be a real SUV. The cabin was cramped, the trunk was tiny, and there were no rear seats at all. The 98 cubic inch engine made just 95 horsepower, and paired with a 3-speed automatic transmission, the car felt painfully sluggish, especially on highways. While some versions offered 4-wheel drive, the X90 lacked the capability to handle serious off-road conditions. To make matters worse, its bubble-like and unbalanced appearance turned it into a laughingstock. It was mocked by media and consumers alike, and sales flopped. Just over 7,000 units were sold in the US before it was discontinued in 1997. 1991, Saturn SL1. When General Motors launched the Saturn brand, it was touted as a small revolution to take on the Japanese automakers, and the 1991 Saturn SL1 was the opening shot. But instead of making history, the SL1 became a complete disappointment. On paper, the SL1 looked promising: affordable, fuel-efficient, modern design, and rust-resistant polymer body panels. But in reality, it exposed a long list of serious flaws. First, the 116 cubic inch SOHC engine was weak, noisy, and notorious for excessive oil consumption, often within the first few years of ownership. The automatic transmission felt rough, and the manual gearbox was vague and imprecise. The interior was another disaster. Hard plastics that cracked easily, uncomfortable seats, and virtually no sound insulation. The electrical system was unreliable, with warning lights constantly flashing even when nothing was wrong. Despite GM's heavy marketing push, the SL1 failed to hold customer interest. Trust in the Saturn brand quickly eroded, and by the late 2000s, the entire division was shut down. The 1990s were a time of explosive creativity in the auto industry, but that very ambition also led some ideas to go way too far. From cars that aimed to be ahead of their time, to bizarre designs or plain failures in quality, each left an unforgettable mark. While some of these vehicles have become collectible oddities or pop culture icons, there's no denying they were once painful lessons for the automakers behind them. Sometimes being different doesn't help you stand out. It just makes you remembered for all the wrong reasons. Have you ever driven or seen one of the cars on this list? Which one do you think was the ultimate disaster? Let us know in the comments below. If you found this video interesting and worth sharing, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to discover more forgotten stories, memorable mistakes, and machines that nearly changed automotive history, but were lost to time.